Jack Maulers launched 21, a Bitcoin native company, through a business combination with Cantor Equity Partners. Now, this is backed by Tether and SoftBank Group. 21 is expected to launch with over 42,000 Bitcoin and a mission to maximize Bitcoin ownership per share. And they're emphasizing this idea, Bitcoin ownership per share, very, very strong. I think a lot of Bitcoiners understand this. We've heard Saylor talk about this constantly, and this is essentially their main motive here. So the co-founder, Jack Maulers, will lead 21 as a CEO. Absolute, juggernaut of a Bitcoiner. This is like probably one of the biggest, most surprising things about this. And then going on and go, 21 is expected to offer investors a singular vehicle for Bitcoin exposure, pro-Bitcoin advocacy, and Bitcoin-focused content and media, with plans to explore future expansion into Bitcoin native financial products. Now, again, here we're going to kind of go into the jargon and the actual press announcement, but we got 21 Capital, a newly formed entity, today announced it has entered into a definitive agreement for a business combination with Cantor Equity Partners, a special purpose acquisition company sponsored by an affiliate of Cantor Fitzgerald, a leading global financial services and real estate services holding company. At the closing of the business combination, 21 will be majority owned by Tether, co-founder of 21 and the world's largest stablecoin issuer, and Bitfinex, with significant minority ownership by SoftBank Group Corporation, one of the world's leading investment holding companies. 21 and CEP, which is Cantor Equity Partners, have also entered into subscription agreements with investors to raise at closing $585 million of total additional capital, consisting of $385 million through convertible senior secured notes, aka what Saylor's been doing, and $200 million through a common equity PIPE financing. The net proceeds from the PIPE offerings, which will close contemporaneously. Wow, it's rough reading today. With the business combination, will be used to purchase additional Bitcoin and for general corporate purposes. 21 expects to launch with more than 42,000 Bitcoin, which would make it the third largest Bitcoin treasury in the world as of today. Absolutely insane, just coming out of the gate at number 3. This is huge. I'm absolutely huge. Now, this is, I think, where the main ethos coming of the company, it goes a new era, measuring success in Bitcoin. And this is something we talk about here constantly on the show. I've been kind of trolling, or really leaning more towards the idea of once we start to price energy in Bitcoin, that's when it's game over. I've been calling it the petrosat. Other people have been talking about this, but here is where we start to see measuring the success of equities and stocks through pricing it in Bitcoin. So 21 is built to accumulate Bitcoin and grow ownership per share, and not just track it, aka track the price, but Bitcoin and ownership per share. Considering, we've seen Saylor do something similar. We've seen Metaplanet do something similar. It's not about, the price of the share. It's how much Bitcoin each share holds. As part of its launch, 21 will introduce 2 key performance metrics to reflect its Bitcoin denominated capital structure and Bitcoin focused mindshare, which is, first, Bitcoin per share, or BPS, the amount of Bitcoin each fully diluted share represents, reflecting shareholder ownership in Bitcoin rather than fiat earnings per share. A truly revolutionary idea that I think is going to catch on like wildfire. And then, of course, the Bitcoin return rate, or BRR, rate at which the Bitcoin per share grows over time, denominating the company's performance in Bitcoin. So you guys can read this whole thing. It goes on to talk about Jack Maulers. It goes on to talk about Cantor Fitzgerald or Howard Lutnick. But here's a good quote here from Jack Maulers. Markets need reliable money to measure value and allocate capital efficiently. This is what we constantly tell everyone on this show. And he goes on to say, we believe that Bitcoin is the answer, and 21 is how we bring that answer to public markets. Our mission is simple: to become the most successful company in Bitcoin, the most valuable financial opportunity of our time. And we're not here to beat the market. We're here to build a new one, a public stock built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. And it's got a couple other quotes, but going further, we did get this Bloomberg terminal here kind of explaining where the Bitcoin's coming from. There is some interesting stuff here. So we have here from the Bloomberg terminal, Cantor prepares $3 billion crypto firm with Tether and SoftBank. So Cantor Fitzgerald, LP, Tether Holdings, and SoftBank Group are in talks to form a $3 billion vehicle that would absorb billions of dollars in, it says, cryptocurrency cryptocurrency, but it's going to be in Bitcoin. Cantor Equity Partners Inc., a special purpose acquisition company, raised $200 million in January and will use the cash to create a new firm. Stablecoin giant Tether will contribute 1.5 billion of Bitcoin, while Tether affiliated exchange Bitfinex and SoftBank plan to put in $600 million and $900 million of Bitcoin, respectively, according to a person familiar with the matter. And then going further, it goes, the deal may be announced within a couple of days. I think this came out on, it was like Monday or Tuesday. And then, of course, this is where we start to see that people are starting to take the Michael Saylor strategy, Bitcoin strategy, seriously. So the deal is the latest spin on the business model of Michael Saylor's strategy, a software maker turned Bitcoin holder that has amassed about $45 billion of the digital asset. Copycat crypto buyers such as Japan's Metaplanet Inc. have sprung up around the world in recent years. Their purchases are typically funded through the sale of stock and other financial instruments, including convertible notes. Then it talks to Tether, about it being basically the most profitable company in the world with $7 billion in excess reserves. It talks about Howard Lutnick, who is what's the title? Secretary of Commerce, part of the crypto adversary group. He's obviously also very huge in Bitcoin. You guys have heard the clip of him saying he's going to buy hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin. Cantor Fitzgerald is also a partner with Tether, and he's a part of the U.S. government. Some people say that maybe there's some concerns there, but hey, as a Bitcoiner, I like to see Bitcoiners in position of power. Though, the last thing I want to mention in here that me and Luke were kind of talking about, there is an interesting tidbit that I didn't know, and it is that Lutnick's son, Brandon, Cantor's chairman, helped introduce Tether to the video platform Rumble, which I found very interesting. Again, you could say that, they're just here to profit, but it looks like they're Bitcoiners. Now, kind of talking through where all this Bitcoin is coming from. Again, Tether is the most profitable company in the world. So that $1.5 billion of Bitcoin, it's probably part of their reserves there. And of course, also Bitfinex, one of the world's biggest exchanges in the world, or rather, I think it's the second largest exchange by number of Bitcoin held, with around 403,000 Bitcoin. So that's probably where those Bitcoin are coming from. It's coming from their reserves. But the very interesting part about this is SoftBank getting into Bitcoin and seemingly buying $900 million of Bitcoin just right off the rip. Now, Kaiser, Max Kaiser, he jumped in on this, and I don't really agree with the rest of this tweet, but the first sentence I totally agree with, and this is, I think, part of the signal. The Capital 21 deal validates and proves the theorem first proposed by Strategy, aka Michael Saylor's company, that when it comes to selling securities to buy Bitcoin, dilution equals accretion. Now, moving forward, interesting story around SoftBank that I wasn't aware of. Obviously, huge investment firm, but the CEO, how do you say this guy? It's Masayoshi Son. He actually bought like the 2017 top, and he went through his own Bitcoin journey. Obviously, if you buy a huge investment in Bitcoin and it drops and you're buying the top, it does mess with your psychology. And here you can see SoftBank CEO sold his Bitcoin for heavy loss because it was distracting. Masayoshi Son lost somewhere between $50 to $130 million in 2018 when the Bitcoin's price volatility became too much for him. And of course, this came out in 2020. And you can see here that he didn't understand Bitcoin, and watching the price fluctuate was distracting his focus from his business. I think all of us Bitcoiners can feel his pain. Now, David Bailey jumped in here a little bit, and he goes, it literally couldn't have been more obvious. You need to buy Bitcoin. And we have a clip here, a screenshot here of Masayoshi Son's, Howard Lutnick and Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. And you can see here with the headline, SoftBank CEO at Mar-a-Lago, Masayoshi Son to announce $100 billion investment in U.S. over 4 years. Now, we've been hearing a lot of talks about foreign investment into the U.S. We've been wondering where that money is going. And I think David Bailey hit the nail on the head yesterday. He's like, it couldn't have been more obvious. He's up there with Howard Lutnick. He's there with Trump. We know that the Trump administration is taking Bitcoin very seriously. And here we are with this SoftBank announcement. Now, again, David Bailey doubles down and he goes, another way to read the headline, SoftBank has officially entered the Bitcoin market with an initial $900 million acquisition. SoftBank holds $180 billion in assets, $32 billion in cash, and a massive portfolio of companies that hold immense influence over. So you could argue or venture to guess that this is just the beginning. And then going further, we got some really good screen grabs here from the official announcement. And, you know, Jack Maulers, Howard Lutnick, Masayoshi-san, forgive me, are kind of angling this as a superior MicroStrategy. Now, we've been talking about this on the show for a while. Can someone come into the space and acquire more Bitcoin than Michael Saylor's strategy? Now, that is still up for debate, but you can see from this chart that they're putting out there that they're saying they compare favorably to MicroStrategies across metrics. You can see strategy, pure play Bitcoin exposure. They're just purely Bitcoin. Bitcoin native operations, again, purely Bitcoin. Existing debt balance, I'm guessing they don't have much debt. They're a brand new company. Debt collateralization, again, seemingly better. Insider ownership, completely owned by these Bitcoiners. Of course, Saylor, I think his majority shareholding is somewhere around 40%, and you guys could fact check me on that. And purpose-built KPIs, again, they're saying this is a better play than MicroStrategy. Now, I know Nico and I were kind of joking for a little bit, like, we missed a MicroStrategy boat, we missed a MetaPlanet boat. Is the next boat going to be GameStop, or is it 21? Now, we are Bitcoiners. I'd say buy as much Bitcoin as possible, but it's looking like we are seeing these Bitcoin securities hit the market, and there's going to be a lot of interest in this. So this is a very interesting new play. And as you can see in the bottom, 21 is potentially a superior vehicle for investors seeking capital-efficient Bitcoin exposure. We will see how this plays out, but with the leadership of Jack Maulers, I think this is going to be a huge play. Now, you guys know for the last couple of days, or rather last week or so, I've really been diving into Simon Dixon's, analysis of what's going on. And this is a pretty interesting take. And then I'm going to pass it over to Luke and we'll chat about this. So Simon Dixon goes, Jack Maulers 21 is launching a SPAC as a capital efficient alternative to MicroStrategy, backed by Cantor Fitzgerald, a primary bond dealer to the Fed. Here's what I think the real play is. SoftBank, a Japanese bank, putting in $900 million, Tether putting in $1.5 billion in Bitcoin, and Bitfinex putting $600 million in Bitcoin are putting in Bitcoin seed capital. Japan is dumping Treasuries. The dollar is weakening under Trump's tariffs. Long-term yields on bonds are rising, and they're setting up for a short dollar long Bitcoin trade. Expect a stablecoin backed by U.S. debt plus Bitcoin somewhere in the mix. In fact, Cantor has already been talking about that. They're a custodian and shareholder in Tether already. They're draining yield, stacking sats, and using Fed/equity/debt markets to do it. You probably should be considering if you should be doing the same. And then this is where he, puts his spin on. It's not about politics. It's about decentralization for centralization. Follow the money. This is Trump-aligned capital betting against the dollar, pretending they are MAGA. And then he goes, full disclosure, I'm a shareholder in Bitfinex. So very interesting stuff. I think this is a huge move. And kind of in response to what we've seen in the Bitcoin price, we were all wondering. I know last week on Friday, we were kind of sitting here feeling a little bearish. Then the price starts pumping a little bit and we're like, we're so back. It is interesting to see. Is this the reason that the Bitcoin price pumped? Though we know about, 2.1 billion of that was probably just coming from Tether and Bitfinex Treasuries. But I'm venturing to guess that the SoftBank $900 million is that new capital coming into the market, buying Bitcoin. And when you add that to the multiplier effect, I think that might be the reason why we're seeing the Bitcoin price start to rip. And it really goes into one of our theses we talk about here constantly on the show. It's only going to take someone with conviction to come into the market to move the Bitcoin price. And we might be seeing that in the time where there's all kinds of uncertainty in the market. So here we go. I ranted enough, Luke. What's your thoughts on all that? Break it down. How are you seeing this? Is this as big as we are making this? Or are we Bitcoiners just excited that the Bitcoin price is pumping?
Well, Bitcoin is pumping. And I am going to explain why I do think it's bigger than most people give this most recent announcement credit for. But I saw a comment in the chat. Somebody said SoftBank equals soft hands. I think that's just a brilliant little explanation of their CEO let his hand in the 2017 top. Again, what's the saying? You all get Bitcoin at the price you deserve. Now, this most recent announcement, I think it's really interesting. I wanted to crunch the numbers. So there's 2.5 million Bitcoin on exchanges. And we know that this company just bought 42,000 Bitcoin. So I was thinking that's interesting. That's big. A brand new Bitcoin corporate treasury. They just came straight out and they said, yeah, we own 42,000 Bitcoin. And they're going to buy more. So I wanted to see how many public companies could do exactly what this new company called 21 could do. Crunch the numbers, and that's what I got. 59 companies out of the 58,000 public companies can buy the same amount of Bitcoin that this brand new company just bought. Just think about that for a minute. That's 0.1% of all of the public companies in the entire world can buy a 42,000 Bitcoin stake. Maybe that's why this company secretly bought the Bitcoin and just came out and announced it from day one. Hey, we got 42,000 coins. I don't know, but I do think it's really interesting. I just think it really ties into this broader thesis. I think the 900-pound elephant in the room that nobody is talking about is the fact that 1 million coins have disappeared off the exchanges over the past 5 years. And I think we're beginning to see signs that billionaire FOMO is accelerating. There's 170 public companies with Bitcoin on the balance sheet today, and it's nearly every week we see another massive announcement. 2 weeks ago it was GameStop. GameStop said we're going to put $1.3 billion into Bitcoin. We're going to raise even more capital, even more debt. That's thousands of Bitcoin gone off the market. Now, again, it's something I think a lot of people forget is that a lot of these public treasuries, whether it's nation state Bitcoin treasury adoption or whether it's public corporation treasury adoption, these guys are not trading Bitcoin. Okay, these guys aren't hedge fund bros trying to make a couple of $100 million playing the Bitcoin 4-year cycles. Like once thousands of Bitcoin go onto the balance sheet of some of these large corporate whales, it's going to be really difficult for them to sell the Bitcoin. Again, a lot of people will say, but they're going to sell, they're paper-handed, they're weak-handed, blah, 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 blah. I mean, you can make an argument for that, but I think just have a look at what MicroStrategy's done over the past 5 years. They've endured a 70% correction in 2021, a 75% correction in 2021, 2022. They've survived a lot of volatility and they haven't sold a coin. And Michael's saying, look, the Bitcoin held by MicroStrategy, it's going to be held for 100 years. And I don't think enough people are really running the numbers and having a look at the maths of what that means. If one CEO, one public company is squatting on 500,000 coins, it's about 2.5% of the entire supply. What happens if he actually does sit on this for 100 years? What happens if another 5 companies want to copy him? It's not, again, a lot of people think this is crazy, but just have a look at today's announcement. 42,000 Bitcoin bought by a Bitcoin treasury company who's comparing themselves to MicroStrategy, which implies they're probably going to want to sit on those Bitcoin for a long time. They're not going to be trading their Bitcoin. I think I think it's the law of large numbers. Every week we're bombarded with another public company who buys 10, 20, 30, 42,000 Bitcoin. And a lot of people are just like, I don't care. It's just another MicroStrategy. And they're not really thinking about, all right, what does the end game here look like? If what we've seen over the past 5 years continues for another 5 years, what happens? I don't think it's some sort of like linear game where you can say, oh, Bitcoin price hasn't moved that much in the past 5 years. Yes, we've 20x'd. Again, the Bitcoin price coming into 2020, it was at $5,000 a coin. We're now at $100,000 a coin. That's the new normal. I don't think Bitcoin just 20x's over the next 5 years. And again, if what just happened in the past 5 years continues, Bitcoin 20x's to what, $2 million a coin? I don't think it works like that. I think when Bitcoin on exchanges get to zero, we're going to find out what the real price of Bitcoin is. And I don't think it's going to be $2 million a coin. I think it's going to be much, much higher. And we're talking about today's purchasing power. Again, I could just be getting crazy here. Maybe Opti needs to rein me in just a little bit here. But I think nobody's giving these billionaires enough attention. I think it's massive what they're saying and doing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the biggest thing, and I think we've all been talking about this the last couple of weeks, is like with all this bullish news that we're seeing, it's absolutely incredible that Main Street and retail are still asleep at the wheel. It's like, how could you not be reading all of this stuff and being like, I need to buy some Bitcoin, whether it's 1% of your portfolio, 5, 10, or like all of us maxis and just you go all in. It feels like there should be an itch in people's minds. Maybe they're just not. Obviously, they're probably just not so absorbed and obsessed with Bitcoin news that they maybe aren't hearing all of this stuff. But if you hear all of the news that we've been covering for the last year, it's absolutely incredible that we're not seeing just extreme FOMO. But again, maybe it's just people waiting for the price to start ripping. And now we're starting to get the price movement. But I do have a quick question, Luke. When you did that math, what you do, 42,000 divided by 21 million. Was that the math you did? Because we all know that that's physically impossible here. So
let's do it live on air. I went 2.5 million Bitcoin. Again, I hope I'm not wrong.
Oh, exchanges. Okay, I see what you're doing.
Divide by 42,000 Bitcoin. This is the new buy today. How many companies can copy what this brand new company has done? 59. So 59 companies can buy that amount of Bitcoin.
Okay, so that's the Bitcoin currently on exchanges. That's absolutely nuts. And I think that really leads into just how scarce Bitcoin is. People just fundamentally don't understand just how little Bitcoin there is and how much capital there is in the world. And when you try to wrap your head around this multiplier effect, it's like, okay, right now we're at what? Every $1 that comes into the market is basically moving up the price by $5. I think we're all still have PTSD from 2021 and, you know, this recent local top that we are fundamentally underestimating just how hard this price can rip. So, you know, don't get caught on the sidelines. This is the time to be buying Bitcoin. This is the time when you need to get your position. And I think maybe leading into what we've been saying for a while, we are seeing that people are trying to get their positions and then they're going to announce it. I mean, I think this 21 Capital announcement is exactly that. Like, hey, we're going to do this company. Oh, yeah, sorry. We acquired 42,000 Bitcoin and then we announce our company. I think more people are doing this exact playbook. So you better get off zero. This is the main signal here.
Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledn has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally not only have an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledn is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to HODL while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you today. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 0.25% off their first loan by using the link in the video/podcast description. What are you waiting for? Head over to ledn.io today.